For my Christmas Advent season, I'm reading Luther's writings on the Nativity and on Christmas. Now, Matt Cawthorn at the Lutheran Church will be so delighted that I'm reading Luther's works on Christmas. Don't tell him that, he'll hold it over my head. I'm hoping he's reading Wesley. But anyway, it's just been phenomenal to reread this. I read it, but it's just nice to read it again. And I felt like there are a couple of things I need to share with you that are imperative for us as we work through this Christmas season. And this is Martin Luther, who is the great reformer. He says on the whole nativity story, we must both read and meditate upon the nativity. There is such richness and goodness in this nativity that if we should see and deeply understand, now listen to this statement, we should be dissolved. I love that word. We should be dissolved in perpetual joy. Isn't that a beautiful, I would never say anything like that, but isn't that a beautiful way to put it? That if we reflect on the nativity itself, we should be dissolved in perpetual joy. Now he goes later to say that St. Bernard declared there were 3 miracles in the nativity. The first is that God and man should be joined in this child. Remember, I told you in Christianity 1 + 1 = what? Because Jesus was all human and all divine. So it was all in all. Jesus wasn't half and half. That's a Greek demigod. Jesus was all in all. He understood your human desires, your human emotions, your human pain. And he understood that because why? He was all what? Human. But he also understands the heart of God because he's all what? Divine. So that is the beauty. That is one of the miracles, that God and humanity should be joined in this one child. Number 2, that a mother should remain a virgin. That's a big one. That is a big one, all right? That's a big one. We have friends that have been trying to get pregnant forever. I know some of you have been through that pain. They adopted 2 kids. And guess what happened? Got pregnant. All right. Now, the third miracle is this, that Mary should have such faith as to believe that this mystery would be accomplished in her. Mary, poor, young, probably 14, 15, 16 years old. Destitute, and all of a sudden an angel comes and says, by the way, you're pregnant. Troublesome, especially when you live in a society that if you become pregnant out of wedlock, you can be legally put to death. And so there's all kind of circles and circles of things going on around it. Truly it's marvelous that God should place this little child in the hands of this simple woman, and she, what does it say that Mary does? She what in her heart? She what? Ponders. What does that mean? Ponder. That means more than thinking about it. You understand? It means that she accepts and holds it and takes this unbelievable responsibility. That is the greatest miracle of all. This is what Luther wrote on Mary after the birth. Think, women, there was no one there to bathe the baby. No warm water, not even cold water. No fire, no light. The mother was herself midwife and maid. The cold manger was the bed and the bathtub. Who showed this poor girl what to do? She'd never had a baby before. And then this line is just precious. Do not make of Mary a stone. What does that mean? Do not make of Mary a stone. What does Luther mean? Okay, we'll sit here uncomfortable with silence. What does that mean? Do not make of Mary a stone. It means that she too was human and not some cold figure sitting off on a shelf. That she felt, that she wept, that she understood, and that she was a part of the mystery. Also, Luther gave us the Christmas tree. Do you know the story? You know it? That good German families would bring evergreens into their home. But they would not set them up like this. Do you know how they did it? They would hang them from the rafters upside down. Who would be to think that all these upside down Christmas trees were in style in the Middle Ages? Who would think? The reason they did that, why? Because in the Middle Ages, everybody smelled bad and evergreen in the house is nice. It's kind of like that thing hanging upside down in your car under the mirror. You know, same thing. All right. In every good Jewish home, there was also a triangle, kind of like thing. It was kind of, I've seen a picture of it. It was sometimes something made of wood, and they have 3 candles. And it was during the Nativity, during the Christmas season, and it would symbolize the Trinity. And it was part of the Christmas celebration. And the reason it was a triangle is because it was big at the top and small at the bottom. Just like if you take that tree, turn it upside down, hang it from the rafter, it would be long at the top, short at the bottom. Same symbol. Okay, you with me? Well, the story is that Luther was writing a sermon. It started getting dark, and he was running out of light. And so he lit the candles on the triangle thing. There's a name for it, I just don't know. And he looked and he thought, But you know, there's always somebody that goes, So Ben sees something and he starts creating something out of wood. He goes, And Joanne goes, how much does it cost? And Ben goes, it's not going to cost you much. And Joanne goes, well, I want some jewelry. And then Ben goes, okay. All right, so that's how it works in your dynamic. All right. So what Luther did was he took and got a small evergreen tree, set it in a pot, put it on the table, and then he took the candles, which were off the triangle thing. And what is the triangle thing? If you lay it down and put 4 candles on it and stick one in the middle, what does it become? Evergreen. That was where the symbol comes from. And then he affixed the candles to the tree. Voila! The first Christmas tree. All right. That's the tradition. I don't know if it's exactly true. Now, we're going to leave Luther for a minute. Is that okay? Can you bear with me? Yes? I mean, you really don't have a choice. But it sounds good to ask, doesn't it? All right. Let's talk about the big J. Who are we going to talk about? The big J. Who? Jesus. Okay. Baptized, this was at age 30. I'm not talking about itty-bitty Jesus. I'm talking about big Jesus, 30. We're going to jump ahead a little bit. 30 years old, baptized in Judea by John the Baptist. Then after he was baptized, where'd he go? He went into the desert or the wilderness. Who tempted him there? That's right, Flip Wilson. All right, so Jesus in the wilderness. Some of the younger folks like it. All right, then, after the wilderness story, Jesus calls his first disciples. He turns the miracle of turning water into wine. Where did that take place? Where? You know what somebody said at 9? They said Canaan. And I said, no, that's just where you get it. I said, it's so weird. I don't know what that means. No, it was Cana, all right? All right, Jesus drives moneymakers out of the temple in Jerusalem. That's right after that, right after the watering to wine. Then he visits got that nighttime visit with Nicodemus. Remember that? Nicodemus came by night because why? Because he didn't want anybody to see him. He was a member of the what? The Sanhedrin. Nicodemus was a Pharisee. He was pretty high up. When he came to Jesus, he said, I just want to check out this guy. And he comes to Jesus by night. That took place in Jerusalem. And then after that, he walks through Samaria and he sees some woman at the well, and she was a Samaritan. All right. Then, right after that, he goes back into Jerusalem and he goes to the pools of Bethesda. Remember what happens at the pools of Bethesda? Angel stirs the water, and whoever falls in first gets healed. All right. Then, after that, he goes from Jerusalem up to Nazareth, his hometown. And there he preaches in the synagogue. The foundation stones of the Nazareth synagogue are still there today, tiny, no bigger than our gathering space downstairs in the new building where the children live. No bigger than that. Nazareth was a small town. Bowersville maybe times 2, but not much bigger. Only about 20 or 30 families at the most. And when you got 20 or 30 families at the most, half of them are kin. And so all of you living together, you've always got somebody that goes, You know those people? You know those people? Okay, so Mary, she marries Joseph, and then the baby comes about month 7. What do? Because they've got a calendar and they're checking. You know those people? Trace, I was living in Dawsonville. Tracy was living in Augusta. And we were going to get married in June. And I thought, this is crazy. So we moved our wedding up to April. And there were some people in Augusta that went, One of those people went to Tracy's mom and said, And Tracy, I can't tell you what Tracy's mom said to her. It was kind of like mind your own business, but it was not that nice. All right. All right. So whenever you go home, she said he probably can never go home. He went home to Nazareth, and those are the people that changed the diapers in the nursery. They knew Jesus, they knew Joseph, and they knew the family, and they grew up together, and all of that. And so then Jesus comes to Nazareth Synagogue, and he's going to preach. All right, now we're going to step back a second, because I want to remind you of the distances between all of these things. First of all, Nazareth to Bethlehem. Remember that Joseph and Mary lived in Nazareth. They had to go to Bethlehem because of why? There was a census, and Joseph was of the family and lineage of David, whose hometown was Bethlehem. And so Joseph has to go to Bethlehem. Guess how far that is? 80 miles. Not an easy 80 miles, not 4-lane from here to Toccoa 80 miles. It is 80 miles of rough terrain going in this. I've seen it. They don't even have the road open anymore to it. It's a hiking path if you want to go that way now. All right, but Nazareth to Bethlehem, 80 miles. What happened to Bethlehem? What are we doing? The birth, that's good. Okay, last Sunday, who came to see the baby first? The what? Were y'all here? Did y'all hear my phenomenal sermon? Anyone hear my sermon? Nobody told you about it? Because it was so profound. That's disturbing. I'm so disappointed in y'all. Now, who came to see Jesus first? Shepherds, that's right. And then some other people came, but we don't know how long it was until they came. They came sometime later. Could have been a year, could have been 2 years. Now, who were they? The wise men. Yeah, they brought 3 gifts, remember? Go. All right. Now, in the process of all of this, there was a decree that Herod said and was going to try to destroy the child. And so sometime in the midst of this, Mary and Joseph, who were still living in Bethlehem, but were no longer in the stable, because it says in Matthew that they were living in a house, kind of like a condo, I would think. And so they were living in a house, and they had to flee. They became refugees. And so where did they flee to? From Bethlehem to where? Traditionally, it's in Cairo, the beautiful, beautiful church that sat over the site of this traditional site that goes back until about 500 AD has been burned to the ground. During the Arab Spring, it was destroyed, very sadly. Unbelievable carvings in wood. Let me tell you how far that is. 200 miles of rough road. I mean, rough. And the neat thing, and I'm a history buff, and to think that Mary and Joseph, the only road that would have gone from Bethlehem to Egypt is still there, still the road used. It was the original Roman road. And they would have passed in sight of the 3 pyramids at Giza. Isn't that crazy? Can you imagine that you could see something that Mary and Joseph saw? All right. So then from Bethlehem to Jerusalem, remember they had to go back and forth, presentation at the temple, all that stuff, 6 or 7 miles, not far, but kind of up and down hills. And then from Egypt back to Nazareth, where our story takes place, is 300 miles. Along the coast is the way that they would have gone. So I'm talking pretty good distances, and they walked everywhere they went. And so just want you to understand that. Now let's look at our text for today. Jesus goes home to Nazareth. It's in your bulletin. It's Luke 4:16-19. It's a very important text. It's a quote of the prophet Isaiah. very, very, very important things. Jesus comes to Nazareth and he opens the scroll and he begins this. And look how many times he says me. The Spirit of the Lord is upon what? Maybe I'll say it when I stop, okay? 10 o'clock notices. All right, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me. Y'all are so good. Because the Lord has anointed me. He has sent me to preach good news to the poor, to proclaim release to the prisoners, and recovery of sight to the blind, to liberate the oppressed, and to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. This is the word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
Jesus goes home and he proclaims this. He reads it. And then what happens? You remember? They got angry because this was Joseph's son. I was with this boy when he was learning to drive. He had 5 trees. I have known him all his life. And for him to come back here and say he is the Messiah. He rolled the scroll up and said, today, this has been fulfilled in your hearing. And they tried to kill him. They drug him to the highest point, meaning the highest point outside of Nazareth, which is a really high point, and they tried to throw him off to kill him. And he kind of disappeared in their midst. He turned his back on Nazareth and never looked back again. He went to Capernaum, and that was the headquarters of his ministry for the rest of his life until he comes to Jerusalem. Luther says, don't make Mary a stone. I don't want you to make Jesus one either. Because Jesus comes to bring us peace and freedom. Merry Christmas. Jesus comes to